Morning, everybody.
Morning.
You got to work with me. It's early for me too here. Hi, I'm Scott Dodgemont. I'm from Parlance Corporation, and I'm joined here by Malik. Parlance is a provider of conversational AI services in the market. We've been doing it for about 27 years now, and have evolved with technology and our partner companies to really help deliver better patient experience across the board. And we're really proud to be presenting today with Malik Bahar. Malik is from Virtua Healthcare in New Jersey. You'll find out a lot more about it, so I won't steal too much of his thunder, although it's a bit of a habit of mine. Malik joined Virtua 24 years ago, and I'll let him do his own introduction, but I'll let you know a couple of things that are important to know about Malik and kind of what he's all about. He started on the phone as a navigator, and now he's AVP and making it all happen. And I think that that is sort of a credit to the way that they work and the way that he's advanced his career up through the ranks. They enjoy a 92% employee retention, which is pretty amazing. And yet it's not as amazing once you get to know Malik, the team that he has built, and the organization in general. We have a lot of customers around the country. We really were excited that Virtua was willing to chat with us to kind of talk with you because of their relentless focus on consumerism in healthcare. We've found that lots of people kind of talk the talk on that and fewer walk the walk. From their CEO, Dennis, on down, it is all the way through their organization. They think about it all the time. They're really nimble, they make adjustments. They're the only customer we have over 200 that invited us to a session run by the CEO where basically he says, hey, vendor community, we wanna be better, we wanna be more engaged with our customers. Tell us how we do it. How do we work together better? How do we get more out of what you're doing that can relate better to our patient community? Because hey guys, we're in kind of a dogfight. We're in South Jersey and people have choices. How do we get better? I was just so impressed by that I was delighted that Malik was able to put a lot more work than me into the following presentation. It's really pretty great. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Scott, and good morning, everyone. Good morning. So, all right, just making sure it's working. So, Scott, thank you first and foremost for your very kind introduction. Really excited to speak with you all this morning. To share a little bit about the journey of how Virtua and Parlance work together to impact how we support and improve the experience overall, really across the board by all metrics. But in addition to that, a little bit of a call to action that we feel as an industry that now is the time to have this conversation with this rope. So as Scott mentioned, Virtua Health, South Jersey, the largest employer in Southern New Jersey, 15,000 employees. And while there are a lot of very positive things up on the screen here, one of the things I wanted to point out was that our overall brand positioning is to be here for good. And that's largely what Scott was alluding to earlier today, well, just a few moments ago, when talking about our dedication to the community and to innovation. And also, when you spoke about the 92% retention rate, which is since 2018, that's the first time I had the opportunity to attend this conference. It's something we're very proud of, mainly by putting people first. All right. So specifically about our Access Center, we are 250 FTE shop, 92% hybrid. We've had a remote program since about 2013. And at this point in time, what we're most excited about is really our ability to improve our network integrity. We have new programs such as virtual navigation, where we have on-site navigators in both the inpatient and outpatient setting, getting patients connected with scheduling prior to leaving the ED, prior to being discharged from the hospital, and also prior to leaving their primary care appointment. So we're very excited about those programs. Virtua is doing a tremendous amount of leveraging AI and new technology, such as Care AI and many others, to really improve the patient experience overall. And for this, really this comes down to, Scott, when we first connected and talked a little bit about how we could really improve the overall experience. This was right in the middle of the pandemic. And we were, like most health systems, struggling with meeting volume. And that's where I turned to Scott and really asked a little bit about Parlance, because the fact of the matter is that we were really having a tremendous problem with meeting the demand.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough timing. You know, I know that everyone was affected from patients, but nobody more so than people on the front lines, which is what Malik's group represented. At the time, they were one of the primary distributors of the vaccine in the area, and they were just being hammered, frankly, by all sorts of calls from all sorts of different directions. And we were able to team up and make things a lot better, sort things out, and allow them to continue to provide the service that, you know, they came to expect from themselves, and moving on from that.
Yeah, and ultimately we had a problem that we needed to solve. And when you think about it, it was really something that I think most of us in the room face on a daily basis. So I didn't announce it earlier, I had planned to. This is an interactive presentation, so if everybody could pull out your cell phone, want to do a bit of group participation. My day normally starts at 7, but was up tweaking the presentation last night, so. Alrighty, this will take you to Mentimeter. So it is a survey that we want you to participate in, and ultimately it'll take you to a word cloud. You should be saying a survey. If you're not saying a survey, somebody please let me know. And awesome, thank you so much. And with that, please just enter the word that comes to mind when you think about your barrier to providing this customer experience that you want. Because ultimately, when we were walking down this pathway, absolutely, when we were walking down this pathway and really had the conversation initially with Parlance, our thought was that it would probably be most of the things that we see on the screen. So far we had staffing. And for any of those who are familiar with word clouds, the larger the word, that means the more people who have selected it. Technology, organizational barriers, provider access, wait time, knowledge gaps, technology limitations, funding, alignment, knowledge, money, regulation. So, I mean, really the top three are staffing, staff, and technology. And that was ultimately our experience as well. You know, we were really running up against it where, like all of you, a Monday morning, we simply can't meet the demand. So what we really came to was the opportunity to partner with Parlance, and really the pandemic kind of gave us that tipping point, if you will, for the C-suite to say, hey, listen, the only organizations that are navigating this space appropriately are the ones who are leveraging technology and leveraging AI. And that really initiated our partnership.
Yeah, you know, before you jump into the next one, I think it's hard to overlook that staffing, the management of people. A friend of mine says, hey, everybody's biggest expense walks in on 2 legs. Right? I liked it too. And it's really true. So it's finding them. My friend Malik has a saying that it's from street to seat. And so he's not thinking about just even the people that are working there. He's thinking about the whole process of getting people in, getting them trained up, the time lag and all of that. It just becomes obvious that you leverage some virtual agents to do the easier tasks that are more mundane for people, and you let the people really hit the ball out of the park on their best things. Their best places to contribute to that patient experience. And that's what these guys do a great job of.
Yeah, so ultimately, this is where the rubber meets the road. We were really able to not only have a tremendous savings and see ROI 3.5 times the initial anticipated amount, but in addition to that, we were able to reallocate staff to the point of 8 FTEs. But as we went forward, that was really through year one. As we went forward, we were able to see continuous and consistency. And the thing that, you know, as I was talking to our C-suite about this, that has been most impressive about the partnership thus far is that once we put it in place, there were never any setbacks. You know, it didn't get any calls on a Saturday night about how it wasn't working, and it was wildly consistent and has been for the last few years. Really, by all discernible metrics, it was incredibly impressive because what we were able to do was not only reallocate staff, but we had for a long time still been utilizing a hospital operator model to support our divisions. And with that, not only were we doing answer transfer and cold calls and physician on call, we were also doing answering service. So this really allowed us to take something that had been a pain point and really focus in on the emergency management component of the service that we provide by allowing the answer transfer to be offloaded, and then additionally finding new use cases to implement the solution as well. As you see here on the screen, we started off with about 51% of calls being self-service, and then that wound up with around 68% as of today. So it has been very, very consistent, and this is honestly where most presentations would stop. Because this is really the impact slide. This is where things change, and this is how we solved the problem that we were facing. But what we really wanted to do today was kind of speak about the larger picture of where we are as an industry. So if you could, once again, please pull out your phones and participate a bit in the survey. And this one is what do you believe are the preferred pathway of choice for patient or consumer interactions going forward? So this is something that, this is a multiple choice one. The last one was a word cloud. So you should be able to go ahead and select. And what we'll see with the donut wheel is really your feedback. So right now, SMS, text messaging is winning about 15%. We're going to treat this like the Kentucky Derby. We got depends on the need at 18 and climbing. Voice is at 6 and so on and so forth. And the reason why this was important is because when we implement this new technology, no margin, no mission, absolutely. We all have G's and O's and an operating budget to oversee. But when the rubber meets the road, it really came down to our C-suite had the understanding that by implementing the technology, we would be able to simply reduce staff. And while we certainly, highlighted the gains that we received, what we really found was this, and thank you all for participating in this survey. What we really found was this, and this is something that we've been showing our C-suite this year over year. This is actual data. And what we found is that as our footprint increased, as brand recognition within our region, highly competitive region, as Scott mentioned, continues to grow, what we really found was that we didn't see a reduction in voice. So to provide some context, the blue bar is scheduling through our access center, through our contact center. And the orange bar is online scheduling. So not only have we done a tremendous amount with Parlance, a huge amount of work with online scheduling, MyChart portal, and really generating awareness for the consumer about self-service options, because that's ultimately the journey that we've been on. And what we then presented to the C-suite was this, that despite the fact that online scheduling, as you've seen, has grown exponentially over the last few years, the demand for voice has not diminished. And something that Scott and I also talk about is that not only has it continued to increase, but in addition to that, we're really connecting with a part of the community that wouldn't always contact us by having the option for online. And then in many cases, they're calling for follow-ups if they need to change that appointment to the tune of about 2 calls, 2.1 to 2.2 calls for every online appointment or online scheduled appointment, mainly because of the fact that they want to go ahead and get that changed, or they want to verify that it is on the schedule, or they simply want to see another provider if something has happened. So that being said, the C-suite is incredibly excited because we've ultimately doubled our scheduling through these modalities as an organization, but it didn't diminish the demand for voice. And that was one of the things we wanted to point out. I've been rolling for a little bit here. Scott, anything you want to add?
Keep it going, Malik. You're killing.
So ultimately, a little bit of data for you all, referring to the McKinsey & Company survey. And this was something that we thought was pretty impactful and really ties into the larger narrative for this morning. And that is that, really, regardless of the generation, voice remains the most demanding, the most in-demand channel. Now, of course, if you're not part of Gen Z in this room, maybe you have a child, a grandchild, a loved one who is a part of Gen Z. And the popular consensus is that they won't select voice. And that's the red bar here. Now, it does state per this survey 2 things. One is that when it comes to direct scheduling, they do like SMS. So for those who selected that was aligned. But when this survey particularly speaks about if there is a barrier, if there is something that needs to be changed, if there's something that needs to be adjusted, the very next thing they do is go to voice, same as every other generation. And this was incredibly impactful because, again, dispelling the narrative that voice will continue to diminish in regards to importance. And there are two stories here that we wanted to really speak to. The first is from 2019, and it really speaks about how Gen Z does not want to hear please hold. You know, I think it's very clear that across generations, there are different styles. You know, so for those who have spoken yesterday about engagement or about training or really about connecting with consumers of different generations, you have different ways you need to connect with them. But it's really no different than meeting the demand and meeting their expectation. And by and large, they don't want to hear hold. I think that's very clear. They are the right now generation and are really aligned with what matters most to them in the moment. And then from there, really the study from 2025, which is that Gen Z is on the phone for customer service needs. So why do I point these two out? Ultimately, we've had 6 years as an industry to get ready. You know, Gen Z is now 28 at the top end of the scale, and at the low end, I believe 13. They are the caretakers of tomorrow. They are starting families. And ultimately, we all know, because you know it's a popular thing in social media and others, that that patience is not their strong suit. And with that, our ability to be ready to meet their demand is incredibly important. And that's why when Scott and I were talking about this presentation, I really wanted to speak to this room about the fact that regardless of which pathway you choose, it's really our opportunity right now at this moment to prioritize and to talk to our C-suites about making sure that we are able to meet demand. In the word clout earlier, it spoke about training, it spoke about morale, it spoke about a lot of different patient access. We within this room can't fix every problem that we encounter, but what we can do is tackle kind of the elephant in the room that has long time been a struggle for our industry, which is times and periods of high volume and ultimately meeting the expectation. So at Virtua Health, we're really looking for 100% of patients that reach out to us are able to be met. Now, that's not to stress anyone out, but the fact of the matter is that that's ultimately the goal, and we believe it's attainable and more importantly, necessary because of how the landscape is continuing to evolve. So here's the official call to action slide. You know, when you think about the horizon and now, you know, obviously Walmart Health has adapted a bit, but Amazon and Apple Health are new disruptors in the field. And just while most of us were traveling here to this conference on Tuesday, Yahoo Finance announced that CVS is planning a $20 billion plan to really revolutionize their consumer healthcare experience. So when we speak about kind of all the contributing factors, you have disruptors coming into our space and really expecting that we won't succeed, expecting that we'll be slow to adapt. And I honestly understand why they expect that. Historically, we have this room and this industry are some of the most caring people ever. One of the things that Scott was telling me a bit about my story is that on my professional journey, the reason I landed in healthcare was specifically because it did walk the walk. It was an opportunity to care for people in a different way, and especially people when they're at their most vulnerable point. But we as an industry must see kind of the landscape ahead of us and really understand that now is the time, not today per se, but now is the time to really adapt and make sure that in all of our contact centers, we're really pounding the table to make sure that we can meet that demand. Because while, you know, we told our C-suite, you know, if we're answering all these calls, you're gonna have to fix access. You know, so we don't have all the answers, but we can focus on what we can actually control, and that's getting to the patient demand. When you think about Chick-fil-A, really across the country, you're getting a heightened level of service, regardless of which location you visit. And normally there's a line there. The reason for that is that the food is delicious, but the reason for that is that the experience that's provided is worth the wait. The experience provided makes you feel special. Listening to David Sawyer's former VP of marketing for them, he really speaks in great length about how during 2008, they really changed their model to focus on service, understanding that, especially during times of financial instability or crisis, people really put a greater emphasis on how they're being treated. And this is really, in my opinion, our opportunity to do the same. I do have a 14-year-old daughter who has essentially 0 patience with me. I'm long-winded, as you can tell. And with that, you know, one of the things I've had to do is really adapt my approach to her in order to be heard. It's really time for us to adapt our approach because we don't want to be Blockbuster. All of us know that story. And certainly we're not going to go away in totality, but we don't want them coming in and siphoning off the aspects of what we do and making the playing field that much more challenging. And then the last thing I would say is that when you think about Gen Z, you just think of it like this. Ultimately, a lot of us in the room are using Facebook proudly and connect with loved ones and family members, and but they were using Instagram. That was their top. That was 2019. That was the bee's knees. All right, for Instagram. But then they moved on to Snapchat. Now they're on the TikTok, and they'll move on to the next thing because really, ultimately, what they're about is what works best for them. And I've called out Gen Z a lot, but it works for the millennials as well, and really for anyone in the room who knows what they need. So ultimately, when we think about what we've been doing as an organization at Virtua Health, this has been essential in this approach. There have been many contributing factors. We have a robust robotic surgery program. We have one of the nation-leading hospital-at-home programs, have full virtual nursing being launched across all of our divisions. But really this approach and focus on people have led to us being, to really ascending as one of the most human-centric brands in healthcare. So while you may all have not have heard of us yet, we're certainly working hard to combat that and to change that. And really, it's kind of the conversation that we're having today, seizing the opportunity and really focusing on the experience that we provide and leveraging the tools in order to do so. That's been essential to that. So as Scott mentioned, this is our CEO, President CEO Dennis Pullen, and had initially planned on sharing a video with you all, but wanted to be more mindful of time. And with the presentation, and if you take a look at the presentation that we've shared with the room, all these hyperlinks are active, including those to the studies and such. And what you will be able to see is a presentation that he did with the CEO of Barrel, Jason Wolf. And ultimately, what the language that's used nowadays in Virtua is that we are champions for humanity. We have an opportunity to really transform. Patients come to us when they're the most vulnerable, and we have an opportunity to transform what we do in order to serve them. And really how it's about taking care of people. And the first and most primary function is that when they reach out, we're there to answer. So I've rolled on for about 10 minutes or so. Doc, anything that you wanted to add?
I don't know, you've covered a lot. You've covered a lot. I think your passion really just comes out, and I think it is really a testament to Dennis's leadership in addition to the passion of people like yourself, that it can permeate all the way through the organization. But I think you don't want to underestimate that it's not just about like, hey, we want to be champions. We want to do that, but we know that in order to accomplish that, we need to look at all the data. We need to leverage the latest technology. We need to make smart business decisions. And I think finding out that one of your smartest business decisions is to take care of your own people and leverage technology that frees them up to be excellent, it has been really kind of fun to watch. Malik's organization has grown from about 150 people when we first got engaged to about 250 now in the Access Center. And so, it's interesting. He talked about, an 8 FTE reduction. The number that we were trying to figure out, it's a little bit harder to calculate, is how many people did they not need to hire? So they needed to hire 100, but would they have needed to hire 200? Their call volumes have gone from about 200, or appointment volumes, about 200,000 to nearly 400,000 now. So it's really been an incredible journey. So I can't add too much more, really, to what you have to say.
You sound like my team. I tend to take all the air out of your room. But no, ultimately, as we go forward and for next steps for us and for the organization and really for partnerships, is to really understand that, the patient journey, there's so much about AI. There are those who embrace it, there are those who are weary of it. I would tell you that while I'm leading our AI journey organizationally, I don't use Siri and Alexa in my home. Not because of anything wrong with it, my daughter does, but the point of the matter is that we're all approaching it and we're all coming to it as individuals. And the focus is really on unique and personalized experiences. And that's something that we as an organization is really focused upon. And I think it's something that we as an industry need to keep as our North Star. Because ultimately, where the consumer of tomorrow, the consumer of today is going to place their money, and then ultimately their brand loyalty is where you are making them feel special. I mean, I think it goes without saying for anyone who's coached Gen Z or several millennials, and it's let me take a step back. I want to be fair. It's not truly about labeling, but each group kind of has their preferences. And for anyone who's coached today's youth, let's say it like that, the demands that they have are really immediate, and they're not really willing to sacrifice. I tell the team all the time, Scott, I'd like to thank the millennials. It's like an award speech. I'd like to thank the millennials and Gen Z for a career, because my leadership style is really conducive to people who want to be led by someone who cares. In the world, as a professional entering the field, they were like, oh, okay, he cares a lot. You can go sit over there and do your job. But ultimately, in the world of today, the reason we had a 92% retention rate, the reason why the only department in the organization with a higher engagement rate is the C-suite, and the reason why within our 15,000 employee system, people have to kind of qualify to work in our access center. Historically, access centers can be kind of dumping grounds. People have performance agreements and so on and so forth, and they get sent to the contact center, where in our department, we'll let somebody go. Maybe they weren't meeting our standard, and then we'll look up and at the front desk of one of the outpatient sites, and it's like, did you know so-and-so was over there? But the fact of the matter is that that's been all a byproduct of really focusing on those unique and personalized experiences, the Chick-fil-A model, inside-out approach, really making our colleagues feel valued, and really walking the walk, empowering the team. When Scott mentioned our growth from 150 to 200, when I joined the leadership team in 2016, it was myself, another supervisor, and an AVP. Currently, we are a leadership team of 15 people, but as mentioned yesterday, we do have a supervisor of engagement. We do have someone whose main focus, because in a remote world where colleagues are really kind of disconnected in a greater way than they ever had before, someone who a small portion of their role is to really strategize how we can make sure that people are connected. Because ultimately, similar to Chick-fil-A, the understanding is that how we make our team feel will then be passed forward to the consumer. David Sawyer says that, the consumer will never feel as good about your organization as your own team does. And that's really our overall model. With that said, we've been incredibly, I'm talking a lot for the parrots and the doves in the room, which tends to be my nature. But from an overall financial and performance perspective, we have been incredibly, we have driven network integrity and been incredibly impactful in regards to meeting our goals and really driving value to the organization. And that's why they allowed me to talk. So the last thing we wanted to share with you all before we turn it over to any questions you may have is that, when we think about our brand positioning and when we think about the opportunity and really the call to action, it really is about identifying vendors and identifying partners to really build something larger with. Not only when Scott reached out and we talked about kind of presenting here today, was it a no-brainer? But in addition to that, through this journey, we've been in close contact along with other members of his team, really because as an organization, our values and what we're driven to accomplish and provide to the public is largely the same. So really, it's been that strategic alignment and the opportunity to really focus on continuous process improvement, and that piece has really been a bit different. As Scott mentioned, we do a call where the CEO has on all several hundred vendors that the organization works with, but it really is about identifying those that are aligned with you, and really that way when you need to make that change at 0 hour or something needs to be adapted, instead of it being just kind of that standard process, someone is a little more willing to step forward and say, you know what, let's get that taken care of for you. And that's really been essential to us and why I wanted to speak here with you all this morning.
Yeah, and we really appreciate your partnership and engagement. Some of the offload rates that Malik enjoys are a direct reflection on his team's willingness to partner back with us as a vendor. We have a lot of happy customers who have around half their calls being processed. The technology is there for them to excel and do better, but they're distracted by other things. They've got other fires to put out. He's always made sure to organize the team in a way that they stay with us and they tell us where we can be better. And we're able to just keep that flywheel going and make it better and better. At some point, you can only automate so much. We know that. The goal is not actually 100% automation, really. That would be this inhuman experience. Although AI gets better, Carter and I were talking about, like, you can do stuff 6 months, you can do stuff today that you couldn't do 6 months ago, right? So, but is the goal really to take people completely out of the picture in healthcare? We don't think so. But we do think expanding the scope of what technology can do will allow people to have more bandwidth to do a better job. So we really appreciate that partnership. The way we deliver that partnership is by not being a technology company that has some people that knows about healthcare. We have our service delivery team led by a woman from healthcare that had a job very similar to Malik's, who also knows technology. And we think that's really an incredible difference in our approach that has helped us support you in the way that we have. And we look forward to doing more and more as technology kind of brings us forward.
Absolutely. Had a conversation recently with the CIO of an organization about 4 times, a contact center CIO, 4 times the size of our own, and speaking a little bit about the journey that we have and similar conversation to what we're having right now. And ultimately the call to action was, regardless of how you choose to proceed, the important part is that you do, finding the right vendor to partner with and moving forward, because the time is really now. Look at my work on Rich popping up. The time is really now as an industry, because we don't want it being siphoned off and having aspects of it chipped away for other industries to really kind of step in and seeing the opportunity that's presented. We don't want to fail the consumer by meeting their expectation, when really all they really want primarily is to be connected with, and then secondarily to have their needs met. But the first step is being connected with, and that's what we do best in this room here today. For our plan going forward is to fully make sure that all 2.6 million interactions to 4 million and as many use cases as we can across the system are initially supported by AI, but then where we had that dedicated group of caretakers and individuals that we brought on over the years with a 3.9 median tenure rate as a department to sit behind that and really provide that experience, really allowing patients to choose the modality that they prefer. One thing we spoke about is we have a huge MyChart adoption rate. It's something that we push on every single interaction through Epic Cheers. We have the next best action really allocated so that we are able to know if you had MyChart active, and then we ultimately offer it, and then we have a team dedicated to getting you set up and connected. So we have a huge push with that. We leverage Luma for SMS. We really have all the different modalities and have been omni-channel for some time. But really it's about the human connection sitting behind all of that. And when it's all said and done, our ability to really leverage technology to initiate the experience, and in many cases, self-service and provide the experience that's wanted is key, but allowing those caretakers and those dynamic team members who sit behind it, who have been so dedicated to all of your organizations here today, to really sit behind it and really provide that human experience that is needed. Our team will regularly do something which we call meaningful connections. And what it is, and it's a huge way that we've been able to pull the C-suite in and really make them engaged in the process. It's something where we will capture the best stories from providers, from patients, feedback, the best calls or interactions that we've had with the consumers, with the patients, and then we'll package that up, edit that down a bit for time, because sometimes it's a 25-minute call that we condense to 5 minutes. And we'll play that for the C-suite. And we get the different members of the C-suite to come in and listen to it each quarter. And really, it does a few different things. One, it ultimately reconnects them to what's happening in the community. 2, it really highlights the importance of the work that we do as a team. And 3, it gives the team a chance to be recognized by the executive team. And at the end of the year, we had Meaningful Connection of the Year winners. And the CEO will sit down and have lunch with the group who have kind of provided the highest level of experience throughout the course of the year. But all that really ties into, we don't want to lose the humanity of it. We want to continue to do it the virtual way, but leveraging the technology will allow us to do so much that we haven't been able to in the past. And that's ultimately what we wanted to speak with you about here today.